Hi everyone, happy to have you here with me once again. Welcome back. Today, as you can see in the title, I'm super excited because I'm finally filming the update for the project Level Up, and that only means one thing, and that is that I was able to achieve, to complete my level 1 palette. And I was super scared because I got a palette that is not something that I feel super like inspired to use because it's quite green leaning. I'm talking about my Baby Yoda palette, the child palette with ColourPop. So yeah, when I rolled this one in, I was scared, especially because I know that ColourPop shades can be really hard to hit pan on, but after a little bit more than a month, I was able to hit all of my goals with this palette. This project was created by Sophie Alexandra, and as always, I'm going to be leaving her channel down in the description box. And the whole idea of this project is to randomly select a palette, and for example, in level 1, you need to use every shade in the palette one time and hit one pan. And now we're going to be moving up to level 2, and that means that we need to randomly select a palette, use every shade twice and hit 2 pans. And now I'm scared. I don't have any like extra rules. The only thing is that my 20 plus pan palette I only want to have in my level 1, 2, and maybe 3. I don't remember what I said in the introduction. But yeah, let's start talking about the palette. And you pretty likely can hear my cat playing around. She is with one of her toys and she is going crazy. So sorry for the noise, but I don't want to take her toy away from her. So yeah, let's start talking about the palette that we roll in. I'm going to insert a clip of when I roll in the palette. I don't think I take any like close-ups, but you're going to be able to see like the part of the video where I was showing the palette in the intro. And you are going to be able to see that the palette was not really used. I think the shade that had more use on it was just like Tatooine, just like a Tatooine. That is the brownish shade that you can see some brush strokes in the pan, and maybe Little Frog had a little bit of use. You can see that it was used, but nothing too like noticeable. And this is how the palette is looking today, and I think you can see that we have a nice little pan in the easiest shade. I have to admit that I went with what it was more easy for me. Maybe it was not the most challenging, like the most fun color, but it made sense for me to go with this shade. And so yeah, let's talk about the usage in this palette so far. And I can say, obviously, since I was able to complete level 1, that I use every shade at least once, but I want to talk about the usage in each one of the shades in the palette. So let me look at my notes and we can go through the palette. Okay, sorry for the change in the angle, my cat. But yeah, this palette was not completely unused, but I didn't touch this palette this year until I rolled it in this project. So the first shade that we have is Precious Cargo, this shade over here, and I have used that shade 3 times. It's a super shadow shade. Let me give you a swatch. It's a super shadow. It's really pretty, but I wouldn't want to hit pan on it because it's kind of hard pressed, so it would have been really hard for me to be able to hit pan on it. Moving on, we have Right Hand Mando, and this shade over here, I only used it once. I thought I was going to use it a little bit more, but I have to admit that the shades that I used the most were these ones over here, and not as much the greens in the palette. So this shade I didn't use, but I think it will have been a really nice inner corner that it's a little bit different. Moving on, we have the shade that we had hit pan on. Is this shade over here, just like a Tatooine. And in this project, I used it 14 times to be able to hit pan on it. And I will say in total, took me around 17 uses to hit pan in this shade, considering the uses that I made in this palette last year. Or maybe, how many times did I use it last year? I don't know if I used it 3 times or 7. I'm not completely sure. I'm going to check and I'll leave the total number of uses that it took me to hit pan on it. But in this project I used it 14 times. What did I say? 14 times. The next shades in the palette I only use once. So Sipping Soup I only use once. Babyface was the shade that it was harder for me to use because it's a pretty like pastel green. It's a really nice shade, but I feel like every time that I thought about using this shade, I felt like I needed to create a complete green look, and that was not something that I wanted. But I end up using it in conjunction with this shade and this like a matte inner corner, and I really like the effect. I'll leave a picture of that look over here. The Force is one of my favorite, or I will say it's my favorite shade in this palette, and I only use it once. The only reason why I only use it once is because I am still working in two shades in different projects that are kind of similar, but this is kind of an antique golden, I will call it. So these three shades I use only once. Little Frog and Float Your Crib I also only use once, and finally the shade Droid Protocol over here I use 4 times. So as you can see, the shades that I use the most were of course Just Like a Tatooine, Precious Cargo, and Droid Protocol, pretty much the neutral shades, and this, as I said, can be a really nice inner corner highlighter, so that's how I use it. So yeah, that's everything with this palette. I'm really excited to roll it out. I feel like I get more use out of it. Kali. I feel like I got good use out of this palette. Took me a little bit out of my comfort zone. Definitely I could have played around more with the greens, and that would have been even more interesting, to say it in a way, to create different kind of looks. But I'm okay with the fact that my first palette in this project I went with the easier shade, because I'm working in so many freaking shades and I'm scared with what we're going to roll in next, because I am focusing in so many eyeshadows right now that I needed something easy. So hopefully now we're going to roll in something with a fun color story, something different, and hopefully it won't be a huge palette. I'm afraid, because I have some palettes that has like 35 eyeshadows on it, and I wouldn't like to get that. Also, I have some palettes in my collection that are quite special, to say it in a way, because they have duochromes, multichromes, and those palettes are newer in my collection and way more expensive than other palettes that I have, so I will be afraid to get one of those palettes in this project. Yeah, let me open my Tiny Decisions app so we can choose a new palette. As you can see, now we're going to be able to make it in a wheel and see together which palette do we get. I'm really nervous, but let's see what we get. I'm afraid. Let's see, and we have, oh my god, we have another ColourPop palette. We have the Orange You Glad palette from ColourPop. That is another unused palette in my collection. I mean, it's not brand new. I have had it since 2020 or 2020, the beginning of 2020. But I don't like using oranges. And that palette only has oranges on it. So, oh my god, that's going to be a challenge. I'm going to look for that palette and I'll be right back to see what we're going to do with it. So here I have my Orange You Glad palette from ColourPop. This is one of my older ColourPop palettes in my collection. So I think it's nice that I got it, but it's a complete orange palette. Look at it. What are we going to do? I don't know. It has a glitter on it, and I will say that I don't want to count the glitter, so that will mean that we're going to use this palette as an 8 pan palette instead of a 9 pan palette. But a part of me want to go with the glitter because I know that I could use it, I don't know, in my nails a couple of times and I will be able to hit pan on it. But I don't really want to do that. It's a really nice glitter, I have to say, but it's really chunky, so I don't want to use it anywhere near my eyes. I don't know. And I know, oh my god, I know that the mattes in this palette are not powdery at all. I mean, Droid Protocol from this palette was a little bit powdery, a little bit more than other shades from Colourpop, so for that reason it was a little bit easier for me to reach my goal. But with this palette, I won't have that kind of look. Oh my god. I don't know what we're going to do. In Tangerine Dreams, we have progress. You cannot see it really, but I work on it at the end of 2020, and then I dropped the palette, I broke the shade, and I end up repressing it, losing some of the products. So maybe we'll go with that one, and maybe a matte, maybe Zested. That could be a nice like transition shade on me, like the first transition. I don't know, I'm really scared. Oh my god. But okay, this is a palette for my level 2, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to meet my goal in this palette, for at least 2 months, so you won't see any updates of this project in a while. I'm warning you. Oh my god. And at least we're getting into spring, so maybe I can use that, like take advantage of that, so this color story it's a little bit easier for me to use. But I'm really scared. But yeah, that's everything for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me know if you have any suggestions of orangey looks that are not completely orange, because I don't feel too comfortable in oranges. I feel like in 2020 when I just start panning, like doing pandle size shadows over my Instagram account, I got so many oranges that year, like 3 or 4 different shades of orange in just 1 year that I needed to pan. So I end up getting sick of oranges, and ever since I haven't been wanting to use oranges at all in my eyes. But yeah, that's everything for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm shocked. But if you like this video, please consider subscribing, giving it a thumbs up, and leaving a comment. Of course, you don't need to do all of that. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to, but that will really help my channel, so I will really appreciate it. But that's everything for today, and I hope I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!